I paid $42,000 in taxes last year, and I hate taxes. I cannot stand taxes. I can't stand that I paid this much. Now, I make $142,000. That's how much I made last year. That's gross. I paid $42,000 in taxes, and it's because I live in the state of California, specifically within the Bay Area. Now, when you live in states like New York, California, not only do you have to pay federal taxes, you got to pay taxes to um, the state that you live in. Now, for me, why I'm so frustrated with paying that much in taxes, I think of all the ways in which I could have used that money. I could have used that money to invest more into my 401k. I could have used the money to invest into my son's accounts that I have set up, his taxable brokerage accounts. I could have saved more money. You could use the money to enjoy life a lot more. That's the first reason I'm frustrated with paying that much money in taxes. Second reason is that I think what a lot of people experience living in the US is the frustration of just not knowing where your money, your tax dollars are going, right? Like allegedly, or the idea is that your tax dollars are supposed to, help fund the government to be able to improve the quality of life that you have living in the state that you live in, or like just in like this country. And for me, I can't find much information as to good things that my tax dollars are being like spent on, right? So it just feels like it's a cost, an expense that's coming out of my paycheck that's just going to fund whatever. And you don't really see the return on investment, right? Or the improvement in your day to day life. So that's the kind of thing that, is a little bit of frustrating. Now, this video is not a woe is me. This video is not me complaining about, my situation. I'm a higher income earner. I love that I make the amount of money that I make. I'm blessed to have a great job, great benefits. I'm very financially disciplined. So is my wife. We're very intentional with the way that we use our money. It's just when I start to audit my finances and start to look at where my money is going, and I've been doing this journey for a lot of different areas, a significant amount of the money that I've witnessed gone from my check, and specifically my earnings for last year, was just in taxes. So there's just so much money that is going out of my pocket to take care of my family, to fund I don't know what. Now, a lot of people probably feel like this, especially if you live in California, especially if you live in New York. And I chose to be here, right? It's my choice to live in the state. I chose to pursue my career here. There's a lot of job growth. There's a lot of job opportunities, specifically living in the Bay Area. If you're looking for a tech job, that's why I happen to be here, right? So I kind of just have to eat it, and know that that's what's going to happen. Is I'm going to have to pay a lot of taxes, not only federal, but I'm going to have to pay state taxes. Now, for me, when I think about this whole tax situation, man, like a couple things that there's only a couple ways that I've figured out. Like you kind of get away from like having to pay taxes. And many of these ideas or these ways that you would do it are just not ideal. I'm gonna be honest, like it's not reasonable, and I'm gonna walk you through them. So the first one, if you want to pay less in taxes, is you just make less money, right? There's that saying, the more you make, the more they take. Like if I just choose to make, less money, right? Or, you take a job that earns less money, a W-2 job, you're going to pay less in taxes. And nobody's signing up to do that. Nobody's going to do that. So that's not realistic. That's not an option, but that's the first way. Um, the second way, which, everybody's going to like say is, well, you need to move out of California, go live in the state that's a, lower cost of living. Yeah, that's going to be a legit way that you'd be able to maybe lower your taxable bill, is just moving to a state that doesn't have state income taxes, that has a low tax rate, right? And less of your check's going to go to paying taxes, right? Like you think of going to Texas, maybe it's Nevada, Arizona, states like that, the Midwest states, states in the South, you're going to pay less in taxes. So there's that. I've already thought of that. I'm thinking long term, where I want my wife and my kid and me, like, where I want our family to like be. We might not set up shop and just stay here in California. Like if we're thinking about home ownership, or if we're thinking about some of the other quality aspects of living long term, moving out of California would make sense, right? Like especially if we're trying to lower our tax bill and the amount of money that we pay in taxes. But that's going to be, several years down the road. I think right now our focus is continuing to invest, continuing to save as much money as we can, continue to grow within our careers, and then make that strategic move down the road, right? But that'd be like the second option to kind of like lower the amount of like taxes that I pay, right? Is I just got to move, I got to relocate to a lower cost of living space, right? Only negative that I kind of think about that is when some of these states that you would move to, the job market might not be as booming as like a major city, right? One of the benefits of living in a major city like San Francisco or New York or LA or some of these other places is that there's a lot of job opportunities, right? There's typically more companies that are based there. There's more positions. There's more opportunity to get a job. So when you kind of go to some of these other places that might be lower cost of living, I see a lot of stuff and a lot of data that there's a rise in job growth, but it's not at the level that the major cities are at. That's why there's more people in the major cities. So that's the only kind of thing that I think there. Third way is what I'm currently already doing, and that's just trying to lower my taxable income through maxing out different investment vehicles through work, right? So I'm maxing out my 401k, right? That reduces my tax bill, or it did last year, by 23,000 roughly. This year I'm maxing out my 401k again. That lowers it by $24,000 for this year roughly. Um, Last year I also maxed out my HSA account, and I was single at the time, and so that, that for the HSA, that's about 4,000. For this year, because I'm like married, this is the first year being like married. I'm maxing out 8,000, so that's gonna be reducing my income by roughly like $32,000 this year, right? So that's the only way from a W-2 standpoint. Like I can see like how I lower the taxes. How it works is because I have that money coming out. These are like pre-tax deductions when you're funding those accounts. It lowers the income that I'm being taxed on, right? So it does help me in the sense that I get to put more like I'm kind of rewarded for putting more money away for like retirement or for the health savings account. And the health savings account, I'm using it like a retirement account. So you are being rewarded in that sense where money's going into those accounts, and it's also lowering like your tax bill. The only thing is you just see less on your paycheck, right? So I have to invest that money to avoid paying taxes. It does set me up for a better financial future for tomorrow, but the reality is you see less on your taxes, so you have less take home pay. So you're seeing less of your money still, right? So that's the only way I've known from a W-2 standpoint how you're able to reduce the amount of income, or reduce the amount of taxes by lowering your income, is through those kind of accounts. That's something for me that um, I think it opens your eyes to really kind of like see that there's not too many options when it comes to when you earn like W-2 income as your primary source of income to lower like your tax bill. There's just really not like besides maxing out like these accounts, there's only one other account I know that can lower my tax, that my taxable kind of like income. And that's an FSA for daycare. That's the only other account. There's really not a lot of options to lower your tax bill if you're a high income earner and your primary income comes from a W-2. Now, the last option that I've kind of really thought about, and I really kind of got this information, reading a book from the author of Rich Dad Poor Dad, Robert Kiyosaki. Talks about the four different ways people make money. There's different quadrants. Is to kind of move the way I primarily earn my money into a different like source, like kind of like on the quadrant. So I'll kind of give a quick rundown of like what those quadrants are. First one's W-2. Most of us are W-2 employees. Most of us are going to make our money from W-2 jobs, just regular kind of like jobs. You get benefits, you pay taxes on it. That's how most people are going to make money. Next way is going to be self-employed. You think of self-employed, you're thinking of your barbers, maybe people that have like a private practice for dentistry, doctors, or that have private practices, things like that. Those are self-employed people. Next is going to be like major corporations, big business. You think of all of the major tech companies: Google, Meta, Microsoft, Amazon, etc. McDonald's, like big corporations. You can make money in that way, right? Like big business. Last way is going to be investor, and kind of in the investor category that he was kind of breaking down in some of his books. He talks about investing, in the stock market, yes, but more so in his space, it's real estate. Now, the thing is, when it comes to these quadrants, every quadrant besides a W-2 kind of like source of like income, earning income from a job, offers the ability for potential um, tax benefits, right? So if you are working a W-2 job like myself, you are screwed when it comes to like taxes. Like there is only so much you can do to lower your taxable income. In my case, like I stated, it's through investing and maxing out my 401k as much as I can, an HSA account. That's really the only thing that I'm going to get from a tax break. But if you're self-employed or you run a big business or like you're heavy in investing and maybe you're into like real estate, there's different ways in those kind of spaces for earning income that you can lower the amount of taxes that you pay, right? So um, that's the only way that I've figured that I'm gonna be able to like lower my taxes. I would have to find a way to be able to make majority of my money in one of these other quadrants, right? So I'd have to become self-employed and maybe be start up with like a small business and you get tax breaks from that, or you get heavily into investing, particularly within real estate, and you're able to find like tax loopholes and find ways to reduce like your taxable income through that space, right? But if I stay current in my current position, if I continue to make over $100,000 a year solo, and then over $200,000 a year combined with my wife's income here in like the Bay Area, I'm going to continue to pay this much in taxes, and there's not anything I can do about it, right? I can find work that is lower income, and then pay less in taxes that way. But I've pretty much maxed out the way that I'm able to pay less in taxes. So if you're a person where you're frustrated with having to pay taxes and you hate paying taxes, first thing is you're not gonna want to live in like in a major city like where I'm living, which is in San Francisco, or you're not gonna want to be in like states like California in general, cities like New York or states like New York. Many of these like major cities, you're just not gonna want to be there because your tax bill is gonna be so high. The second thing is if you hate taxes, you're gonna have to find a way to make money, a majority of your money in places that um, does not come from a W-2 like job. So a W-2 job, again, like what many of us kind of like work, you go to work, you clock in, you get a check, you take home. You're not going to want to make money from those kind of like avenues if you want to pay less in taxes, right? You're going to need to figure out how do you get some stuff from money from an investment standpoint. Maybe you're self-employed, or maybe you're the person that starts like a huge like big business. Now, what's crazy about it is like, and I think I'm gonna make another video just like on this to kind of like break it down. It seems like the system is really designed for majority of us to work W-2 jobs and to pay into this tax system, right? Like you think of school, you think of going to college, you think of like what you're taught about getting a good job. All of that benefits the government. All of that benefits them because if most people are working W-2 jobs, most people are paying taxes, most people are not going to be able to take advantage of any tax, like loopholes or ways to lower your tax bill. So more funding is going into kind of like the government. So um, that's it's almost there's almost a barrier from that standpoint into figuring out a way to make money um, in a way that is tax efficient, right? Like that's just not like a thing, right? Also, the barrier to entry into going into investing, building a big business, or being like self-employed is much greater, right? So there's much more risk that comes with that. That's a separate topic in of itself. To get to a place where you can be successful in making money in a way where you're not dependent on a W-2 job. There's a lot of barriers to entry into that. Most people that go into those spaces are not successful. So the safer route is to get the W-2 job. You got a lot of benefits. You get time off. If you don't show up to work, you got sick time. But you don't have any tax advantage, right? So you're gonna end up, if you're like me, living in California, paying $42,000 in taxes and just seeing $42,000 in taxes go out the window. I made a video the other day talking about how much I paid in rent, which was roughly around $33,000 last year. I paid more in taxes than I paid in rent, which is crazy. $42,000 in taxes just gone. I don't even know where the money's gonna go. Well, I know who it's gonna go to, but I don't know what it's gonna be used for. So, um, I hope this video is just to share the reality. It's not to complain. It's just some things that I'm thinking about. Right? Got to think about for myself and my personal finances. What are some ways that I can actually start generating some serious income that are outside of my W-2 job? Because as I've gotten older, once you get to this level, you realize I don't know if I want to make more money through a W-2 job because I'm just going to give more money up, right? Like if I doubled this my salary, doubled my earnings, I'm just giving up more to the state. I'm just giving up more to the federal government, and I'm not going to see much more of it like take home pay. So that's where I'm thinking like I gotta actually lock in and figure out like what are some ways to make some serious money in one of these different kind of like quadrants, so that I can start to lower the amount of money that I'm like taxed on, right, and primarily earn money from that space. So Hope this video helps. Just sharing a little insight into my life, how much money I paid in taxes. I hope it gives you some stuff to like think about. Leave in the comments how much you paid in taxes if you if you want to share that, um, or what are your thoughts on the different ways to be able to lower your taxable like income. Hit the like button, subscribe. I'm gonna continue to drop daily videos for you, documenting my life, talking about finances, family, growth, etc. Take care.